Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Ellie. I want to apologise if it seems that the camera is like wiggling a bit, but I'm testing a new tripod and it's not the strongest, so if it moves I apologise. But today I'm going to be talking about books that I really loved, that I have either never seen anyone talk about online or ones that aren't really talked about that much. So quite a few of these are actually young adult, and I don't tend to read too much young adult these days, but like some of these I read years ago and I still think about them all the time, and I just think they're really good. So the first book that I'm going to talk about is probably the most recent one that I have read out of all of these, and that is Last Chance Books by Kelsey Rodkey. This was in my top 10 reads of 2022. This is the story of Madeline and Jasper. So Madeline works in her family's bookshop, which has been in their family for generations, and then across the street a like chain bookstore opens, so she immediately sees them as her rival, and this guy Jasper works for this rival bookstore and he keeps coming in to her shop, and she thinks that like he's trying to sabotage them, so she keeps going into his store, and there's like this back and forth between them of them trying to like sabotage the other one's store. And Madeline does like Jasper, but she doesn't want to give in to that because she feels that's kind of like against the point, because he's like the enemy. And I mean, the cover of this is really cute, but the story I just devoured, and yeah, I never see anyone talk about this one. Then I have Evermore by Alison Noel. This is actually part of a series. This is book one, and this is one of the series that got me into reading. Like, I don't know how many times I've reread this, but this follows Eva, and at the very start her family is involved in a car accident and she is the only survivor. So she moves to live with her auntie. She has to like start her life over, and before the accident she was like the popular girl in her school. She was a cheerleader, and she's just like the complete opposite now. She's really gone in on herself and she just has like two really close friends. And then a guy called Damon shows up at her school, and she starts to like suspect that there's something off with him. Like, he doesn't eat, he doesn't drink. She really likes him, but like there's just something off there. And then she realizes that she can like start to see people's auras, and that's something that was like brought on by the accident. So like there's a bit of like paranormal in this, and yeah, the series follows Eva and Damon, and like I don't want to like give too much away, and there's a reason why they were drawn to each other. And this was like 15-year-old me's favorite book. I absolutely loved it, and I know young adult isn't for everyone, but like this series is just so good. Next I have Girl Missing by Sophie Mackenzie. As you can see, I've read this book I don't know how many times, and I apologise if you can hear lorries. I live on a new build estate and they're still building just down the road, so there's lorries and road sweepers going by constantly, so we're just gonna have to try and ignore that. So yeah, Girl Missing. This is also part of a series. There are 3 books in the series. In the first book we follow Lauren. She is adopted and she is given a school project. She's going back into year 10, I believe, and this project is titled Who Am I? And it really gets Lauren thinking, because she is adopted, so she doesn't really know like where she came from, and she starts to do like some digging. She goes online and just like searches up her name for a bit of fun. But the search brings up a missing persons website, and as she's scrolling through she doesn't really think anything of it until she comes across a photograph of a little girl who looks just like she did. This little girl has a birthday which is a few days different, but Lauren lives in the UK and this girl was abducted from America. So of course she's like, that can't be me, like there's no way that can be me. But then the more she thinks about it, she's like, her adoption was closed. So she goes up into her parents' loft and gets her mum's diaries out and reads through them, and she just starts to get like more suspicious of where she comes from. So she launches this plan alongside her best friend Jam, and they get themselves to the adoption agency that she was adopted from to try and find out what really happened with her family and if she really is the girl who was abducted. And I think I was given this book when I was like 10, which was probably a little too young, but I could probably recite this book from memory. I've read it so many times. The second book in the series also follows Lauren and Jam, and then the third book follows one of Lauren's family members, but they do pop up in it. But like, it's full of action, full of drama, and the first time I read it I couldn't guess what was gonna happen. So yeah, I got this when I was like 10 and I'm 27 now, so it's a very, very old book, but like, whenever someone says recommend a book, this is always one of the first ones that comes to my mind. Then I have these two. So I have Poison and Charm by Sarah Pinborough. There is at least another one in this series. There may potentially be more, but these are fairy tale retellings. So Poison is a Snow White retelling and Charm is a Cinderella retelling, and the covers of these are like gorgeous. I'm pretty sure I picked these up in a charity shop, and I was like not expecting these. Like, they had like a bit of spice in them. I can't remember what the other books, fairy tales, were, but I know they've been on my like Amazon wishlist for absolute years. But if you love retellings, like, you should definitely pick these up. They were so good. They're like a little bit dark, but not too dark to be considered like a dark romance or anything. I don't know what to say other than if you're a retellings person, pick these up. Then I have another young adult. This is 26 Kisses by Anna Michaels. The cover of this is gorgeous. Start of this, our main character Vida is dumped by her boyfriend Mark, and she is like really heartbroken over this, but she decides to take the opportunity to have like the best summer of her life. So she makes a bucket list and she intends to follow this to forget about Mark and just have like the best summer ever. And the 26 Kisses comes into this because her friend like sets up the challenge that in the summer she should try and kiss a boy whose name begins with every letter of the alphabet. So by the end of the summer, she would have kissed 26 boys. This was just like really fun to read. And of course, she does end up falling for one of the boys who she kisses for this challenge. I've like never ever seen anyone post about this, but like the cover itself is just surely enough to make you want to pick this up. Then the final book I'm going to talk about is After the Fire by Will Hill. This is a very different book to the kind of thing that I would usually read. I picked this up like 7 years ago in Waterstones. This is another young adult, but in this one we follow Moonbeam, and she has been living in a cult for her whole life. She doesn't know anything different. She believes the way of the cult and their teachings is true, and that everyone like in the outside world is bad. And one day the cult kind of like gets found out and it's raided by the police, and she is taken by them and she is like questioned about the cult. And at first she obviously doesn't want to talk. She doesn't want to open up to the police because she believes that they are bad people. And slowly she does start to open up. So the story is like told from police interviews, but also like going back in her mind as what she went through. And it's a process of learning that actually the things she knows aren't true, and what she was taught and what she went through wasn't right. And I had never read anything like this before, and it was really out of my comfort zone, but I was just hooked by this the entire time. And yeah, you basically find out like how she managed to escape from this cult. And yeah, I would just like really recommend this. It is quite like a hard hitting book, but I've never ever seen anyone talk about this, and I feel like more people should definitely read it. I didn't realise actually all of those books were young adult, but I feel that over the last couple of years I've really fallen into the trap of like Instagram and TikTok and reading all of the popular books. So I've not really read too many books over the last year that haven't really been talked about. So, and that's something I definitely need to change this year, is start reading more different genres and doing a bit more research into the books I read instead of just reading like what's popular. But yeah, let me know if you've read any of these books. I'd be really intrigued because like I said, I've not seen anyone talk about these. Or let me know if any of these have like catched your interest and that you've added them to your TBR. Yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you again next week.